we had started flushing fire hydrants Monday, and we flushed all day long. And we've got plant operations. I've got an operator on site from 7 to 3:30, 7 days a week. Beyond that time, we've got a SCADA system in place that has safeguards built into it to, if the towers get low, they turn on the pumps. If things are out of whack, they can lock out the pumps. And that's what happened late Monday afternoon. After the operator was gone, we had a parameter that was not where it was supposed to be, and so it locked out the high service pumps. Normally, that system goes into an alarm mode when that happens. It went into the alarm mode, but there was also a dialer that calls out to 3 of us to notify us that there's a problem, and we'll go back and check. We found out yesterday morning that the dialer is not working as it should. So from late afternoon Monday until just before 7 o'clock Tuesday morning, when the operator came back for shift, those pumps were locked out. And the only way that we have to bring water from the plant to town in the towers is our high service pumps. And with those pumps being locked out, we were left with what we had for water in the towers, both towers. And as we were going through that, pumps were locked out, the towers continued to drain. We got to the point where when the operator came in yesterday morning, the south tower had just registered 0 in the belly of that tank for water. Now there's still water in the standpipe that would continue to generate pressure. However, I couldn't guarantee what that pressure was. And the state has parameters in place that if it drops below 20 psi, then we go to the process that we're doing with the boil water advisory. I don't have any verification that it did drop below 20, but what we're trying to do is to err on the side of caution in case we have parts of the system that did drop below 20 pounds. We went to the step, we talked to the DNR, we worked through the process with them, and we went through the step of issuing a boil water advisory. It's not a boil water order, it's an advisory. Largely they're treated the same way, but we took that precautionary step because we want to ensure the safety for all of the customers. And we worked yesterday morning. Once we found out what was going on, the operator was working to get everything back in line, turned back on, get the high service back on, and we did. And then we continued to look into what had happened and why, and we brought a control systems company back in to look at the process as to why the alarm system didn't work. We did get that alarm system fixed. We're in the process of writing different protocols for the operation of that alarm system. And after that process was done through yesterday morning, then we turned our attention to notifying the DNR and having the conversation with field staff at the DNR as to what had happened, where we were at, what findings we had to show available water level in the towers. Talked about the possibility of the system pressure being low and going through that process. Then they have a template that is used for the boil water advisory. And we spent time with the DNR working back and forth on what that template would be, what the wording of it was, and getting that approved through the DNR. And then we turned that around and we issued the press release. We went through Oski News, we went through CRI, KBOE, the Herald. The DNR took the steps of also issuing to local media. They also hit the news stations in Des Moines. So we got the release out with the advisory, and then we took the step in the office here to start contacting the hospital and the nursing homes. And so we look at wanting to protect the health of the infants and the elderly and the sick. And so notifying them got all of those notified, and we notified the schools, both Oski Public, Oski Christian. And then because we've got a food processor in town with Oskaloosa Food Products, we also notified them, and we're talking to them about the procedures that they had going on, and they're doing additional testing as well. So we, as we were doing some of those things in the office, we had staff that was going out and doing what we normally would do in a complete month's worth of bacteriological testing. We did that all in one day. And we wanted to grab samples from all around town to verify through Keystone Labs in Newton what the quality of the water was, and was there any contamination. Because again, we have no indication that it did happen, but we're erring on the side of caution. So we are out and we're taking those tests. Took a whole round yesterday, ran them up to the lab. We will also take another round today and run them up to the lab. It takes 24 hours from the time the lab receives those samples until they have results. And so we'll know late this afternoon what the results from yesterday were, and we'll know late tomorrow afternoon what the results from today's testing is. And if everything comes back, absent of any total coliform, any fecal coliform, and comes back absent of any of that, then we will lift the boil water advisory tomorrow. And if we come back and there are issues somewhere, something comes back that we have a positive, we will look at what we need to do in consulting with the DNR to change it from an advisory to a boil water order.
Walk us through the step. There's been some conversation about the time frame from when the issue was discovered till when the public was notified.
Right. So the first thing we did yesterday morning was the operator came back in. Like I said, the alarm system wasn't working. So notice that. The first thing we did was work to get that system up and running. And we spent a couple hours making sure that we'd done the testing that we needed to on the water, and get the high service pumps running back again, get everything back in place where it should be. Then worked through the process to bring that control company in and make sure that we don't have this issue anymore with the alarm system, and also started making the phone calls with the DNR and working through that process with the DNR to have everything approved, work on that template. It's not a quick process. There's back and forth as we were writing things down and coming up with the appropriate wording for that notice, going through the process of informing the leadership here with the Board of Trustees and the City Council as to what was going on. And then the next thing we did once that notification was made was we sent out the public notice to news media. Mm-hmm. And so trying to work through everything and make sure that we've got the wording that we need and everything's taken care of appropriately, several hours. It's not something that was as soon as we know about it, this is what we're doing. There was protocol that we were following in place to run through the notifications. The original issue was noticed just before 7 o'clock, and it was by the time we had everything back up and running and all the notifications made, I've got to go back to email, but I think we sent stuff out yesterday at 2:30 maybe, as far as when issued from.
And I know this was just an advisory, but there were folks that had concerns about the speediness of being informed. Is there any way that's being looked at to expedite that process?
At this point in time, there's nothing that we're looking at to expedite the process, because we want to make sure that we've got everything in place and we're not, it's not something that we are going off and we're misinformed or we've missed something. The last thing I want to do is issue an advisory, when in fact it should have been an order. It should have been a boil water order instead. And so we were, again, erring on the side of caution and trying to get that done in a manner that takes all of that into account.
Okay. And what can residents expect from, let's say, Thursday is the potential earliest that it could be lifted?
Yeah, late Thursday afternoon. We will go through the same process. When we have the results and everything comes back, either, and we'll know a little bit this afternoon based on what yesterday's testing was, but either one of two things happen. The test results come back negative of any issue, and late tomorrow afternoon we can lift the advisory. Or the test results come back and there is an issue, and that advisory will probably roll over to an order instead of an advisory. You know, at this point, it's an advisory, and we're looking at we want people to be safe. We want you to use your discretion. Bathing and showering isn't an issue. Just if you're concerned about it, don't drink the water as you're bathing or showering.